So, what does it really take to build something from nothing? We hear these stories all the time about entrepreneurs. A brilliant idea, a super tough struggle, and then boom, a huge success. But what does that journey actually look like? In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain and break down the real story behind the legend.
Mark Twain absolutely nailed it here. The secret to getting ahead is getting started. It's so easy to picture entrepreneurship as this exclusive club for geniuses, but it's really not. It's just a path that opens up the second you decide to take that very first step.
And every single one of these journeys starts right here, with a spark, just a single simple thought. It's kind of wild when you think about it. Every massive company that shapes our world today started just like this, as a little idea in someone's head. Which, of course, leads to the million-dollar question. Where do these world-changing ideas even come from? Do they just fall out of the sky, like a lightning bolt of pure genius? Or is there something more to it?
Well, it turns out they're almost never random. Inspiration usually comes from a few key places. A lot of the time, it's just a personal frustration. You've got a problem in your own life that nobody's solved yet. Or maybe you spot a missing piece in the market, a gap that no one else sees. It could even just come from a deep, geeky passion for something. But the common thread? It all starts with paying really close attention to the world around you.
Okay, but an idea? That's just the starting line. The really, really hard part is taking that spark and turning it into something tangible, something people can actually use. This is where the real work begins.
And it's not just guesswork. There's a method to the madness. First, you've got to do your homework, your market research. Does anyone actually want this thing? Then you map it all out in a business plan. But the most critical step, by far, is number 3, building what's called an MVP, and then immediately getting feedback.
So what the heck is an MVP? It stands for Minimum Viable Product, and it's basically your idea in its simplest, most bare-bones form. The goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to learn fast. You build just enough to get it into the hands of real users so they can tell you if you're on the right track. Honestly, it's the best way to avoid wasting years building something nobody actually wants.
All right, this brings us to the part of the story you almost never see in the movies, the grind. This is the long, hard slog, that period of relentless work, constant self-doubt, and the crushing pressure of just trying to keep this fragile dream alive.
Yeah, there's a massive gap between the dream and the day-to-day. You think you're going to be your own boss, right? But in reality, you're answering to every single customer. You imagine this amazing creative freedom, but you actually spend all your time putting out fires and solving one unexpected problem after another. And that all overnight success thing, that's almost always a myth that hides years and years of grinding away. And the stakes are just incredibly high. I want you to let this number sink in for a second. 90%. That's about how many new startups fail. They run out of money, they build a product nobody needs, the co-founders have a falling out. It's just a brutal reminder of how tough this journey really is.
So that's the real question, isn't it? If failure is basically the default, how in the world do the successful ones actually survive? What separates that 10% who make it from the 90% who don't? What's their secret? Well, they get to this point, the breakthrough. This is that incredible moment when all that hard work, all the struggle, finally starts to pay off. It's when the momentum finally shifts and the path forward suddenly becomes crystal clear.
And a breakthrough is almost never a straight line. Just look at this chart. For the first couple of years, growth is slow, maybe even painful. And then, all of a sudden, it just explodes. That sharp turn, that inflection point, is often because of something called a pivot, a huge change in direction. It's when a founder finally takes all that painful feedback from the grind and uses it to make a brave, game-changing shift.
This quote really says it all. The breakthrough happens when founders stop building what they think people want and they start building what their customers are screaming that they need. See, it's not about having a perfect vision from day one, it's about having the humility to actually listen and adapt. So after surviving that entire roller coaster, from the spark, through the grind, all the way to the breakthrough, what are the big lessons? What's the advice that gets passed down from one founder to the next? The wisdom they gained usually boils down to a few key things. First, just listen. Start small and let your very first users be your guide. Second, be ready to pivot. That willingness to change course is often the only thing separating success from failure. Third, resilience is way more important than brilliance. A great idea means nothing if you don't have the grit to see it through. And finally, you can't do it alone. Your team is everything, and you have to never, ever stop learning.
So there you have it.
The full journey, from a simple little thought all the way to a thriving company. It's a path that's defined by challenges, for sure, but also by incredible creativity and persistence. And it's a powerful reminder that every great story starts in the exact same way, with a single idea. So the only real question left is, what's yours?